Okay, welcome back to the Are You Strong show. I have a truly special guest, for this show. And once we start talking, you're gonna find out why. But we go back, and I was thinking about the calendar, looking at the years. We go back 45 plus years together, and this person's got one hell of a story to tell tonight. And I'm sure all these listeners are gonna be totally jacked up and excited once we're done. But I can't wait to get into it. So just join me welcoming, Tom Caravela. Welcome to the show, Tom.
Hey man, I am so excited you asked me to do this. And before we get started, Jeff, I have to tell your listeners, it's 45 years. I have some really good stories. I'm not going to get into them.
Yeah.
But the one thing I want the audience to know, anyone that's listening to this, I could not pick, if I had to think back about the people I grew up with, childhood friends, people that were around my age, there's no greater class act than Jeff Durr. No greater class act.
Well, I
And I
appreciate
mean
it,
that
Tom.
sincerely. And guys, so Jeff was 3 years older than me, or is 3 years older than me. So I came right up in high school after him.
Yeah.
And there were people people your age that were, really good athletes. And,
Yeah.
they used to pick on us and, big time us, but not Jeff. You're always a class act. So I appreciate you, brother.
Well, I appreciate those kind words, and birds of a feather flock together, and your reputation, is impeccable,
Thank you, brother.
and your family name is impeccable, and
Appreciate that.
your name resonates when you hear the town of Caldwell, New Jersey, West Caldwell, New Jersey. The Caravella name comes right to the top, So
I appreciate that, man.
it's a pleasure to have you here, and I can't wait to get into all these.
Let's do it, man.
I got a ton of questions to ask you.
Yeah.
And this is all about, the mental challenges, the physical challenges that athletes face both on and off the court, the field, the mat, and I don't think, right now, I don't think the audience knows a lot about you. So
Okay.
why don't you tell everybody a little bit about yourself, and then we'll get into it.
Yeah, absolutely. So after growing up with Jeff, Caldwell High School, where I played football, wrestled, captain of the wrestling team, captain of the football team, made the decision to wrestle in college, and went to Rutgers. So was a part of the Rutgers wrestling team so 86 to 90, graduated in 1990, just to kind of give you an understanding of the time frame. And then after college, went right into, like, literally graduated the next day. I started like my first job. I was health insurance salesman. So I sold HMO plans. Yep. For US healthcare. So back in the day,
I remember that.
I was selling like HMOs when no one knew what it was. It was just god awful. But it was a great first job. I did that for 2 years, and then I got into pharmaceutical sales. Did that for about 10 years. Did really well. I was one of the top reps in the entire country. Did really well. And then accidentally on purpose, wound up in the recruiting industry. Helped out a friend of a friend who was starting a business, started consulting with him. And then the next thing you know, I learned what it meant to be in the recruiting world and started my own firm. And I decided to gear it towards pharmaceuticals. So I started a pharmaceutical search firm, and that was 22 years ago. And now I have this very successful pharmaceutical search firm. We're extremely niche. I have a podcast that caters to my niche. We just hit 450,000 unique downloads in over 90 countries on my podcast. And I wrote a book. So I wrote a book called Job Search Mastery, How to Win Your Dream Job. And it just went to #1 on Amazon in 5 different categories. And I do a lot of speaking and training and coaching. And life is good, man. Life is good.
That's awesome. And your book, I have the book right here on my desk here. And I've been reading it, and there's some really cool things in there. And we're going to get into that a little bit too.
Cool.
But you mentioned Rutgers, you mentioned wrestling, what was the motivational factor? Hey, Rutgers, you probably could have went to a lot of other schools. What was you stayed home, you went to Rutgers, you wrestled there. What was the motivating factor to go there?
I think it comes down to I'm like a mama's boy, man. I'm a Jersey guy. And I looked at a bunch of different places and I just felt home. I felt like Rutgers was home to me. And it was obviously in New Jersey, close enough to give me the ability to go home and, visit, do my laundry, have a home cooked meal. But I got to tell you, once I got there, I never left. I
Right.
loved it. I
Yeah.
loved every second of it. I loved it. And there's things I shouldn't say I wouldn't change a thing. There's things I would have changed. I would not have changed
That
that
choice.
decision.
Yeah.
That choice absolutely was the best choice for me.
Good. So you go backwards in time, Rutgers wrestling. What comes to mind when you're thinking about Rutgers? You're thinking about your experience. What's the top thing that comes to mind from that?
Yeah. It's funny. And I was thinking about this. I knew you were going to ask me that. And I know there's a lot of athletes that listen to this podcast. And I know you're really tied into the athletic community. And when I think back about my college wrestling experience, the first word that comes to my mind is regret.
Hmm.
I regret the fact that I didn't take my college wrestling experience seriously. I just didn't take it seriously. I went to Rutgers. I got all caught up in the atmosphere and the partying and the Thursday nights and wrestling's hard, man. It's cutting weight, you're getting your ass kicked. You're freaking like, when you're in high school and you're wrestling, you're wrestling like, wrestling boys. You
Yeah.
go to college, you go to Rutgers, you're wrestling men.
You
It's
wrestle
a
with
whole different
monsters.
thing. Monsters. Um, so if I had to go back and give my freshman self advice, the advice would be time is limited. Don't waste it. Take
Hmm.
it seriously, because you may regret it if you don't.
Yes, that's big. So if you look at those 4 years, is anything that stands out like that made you realize, hey, you know what? I'm starting to regret this. Did that happen after you got out of school, 5, 6, 10 years later? Or was it towards the end of your college career, you start, hey, I'm regretting not doing the right thing here?
No, back then I was having too much fun. It
Yeah.
wasn't a priority for me. It just wasn't a priority. So I didn't come to regret it until much later on when I realized at some point in time, the one thing I try to tell people at some point in time, there's no do-overs. You can't go back and redo something. You have an opportunity. And if you don't take advantage of that opportunity, you're not going to get it. You may not get it again, especially in college athletics. You only have a limited time.
Yeah.
So I look back and realize there's never going to be a chance for me to do that again.
Mm. So what kind of warning signs are out there, Tom? If you're going to go back and tell a college athlete now who they might be doing the same things you're doing,
Yeah.
but they don't realize, hey, this is going to come hurt me down the road. If you could, point out some warning signs for the athletes that are listening now, hey, you know what? Hey, geez, that might be me. I'm doing that stuff right now.
Well, and on any team, you're going to have the group that doesn't take it seriously. You're going to have your real serious, top performers. You're going to have the middle of the road people, and then you're going to have the guys that are just like going through the motions. And the warning signs are that first of all, a lot of them travel in packs. They wind up finding each other. So you'll know the group that's kind of migrating, and it's like a misery loves company.
Yep.
There's a lot of complaining. They're blaming and they're like making excuses for poor performance, or if you lose a match, it's like it's the ref's fault. It's you cut too much weight. There's excuses, or you blame others. You blame the school's too hard, work is too hard, parents are giving me a hard
Mm.
time, the coach stinks. So like those are the warning signs. But the thing is, you have to take a you know look at who you're hanging out with. Look
Mm.
at are you doing are you doing this stuff? Are you making excuses for where your poor performance or your lack of effort? Are you being lazy? Laziness is another, procrastination and laziness go hand in hand. It's another warning sign for athletes that just are going to later really regret not taking it seriously.
So how can they, you said procrastination and laziness. Lazy people don't think they're lazy, but successful people always think they're not doing enough,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Mm-hmm.
So how can you help a young athlete identify whether they're being lazy or not?
Well, I'll tell you, it's first of all, look around. Like look around. I'll tell you. I'll tell you a story. This is a great way to answer. And this like I should have used this as a real warning sign.
Yep.
But in college wrestling, you have to cut weight. It's just a
Right.
part of it. There's just no way around it.
Yeah.
And I'll never forget. A bunch of us went out on a run, and we're running around just around town, around campus. And I lived on Gilden Street. I'll never forget. We were coming down Gilden Street. We were doing like laps all around that neighborhood. And I was gassed, gassed. And one of my teammates is like, and I'm complaining. I'm like, this sucks. I fucking hate this,
Yeah.
whatever. Right.
Yeah.
And one of my teammates is like, you know why you hate wrestling? You know why you complain? Because you're out of shape and you don't put in the work.
Now, what year was this?
This was like probably my sophomore year.
Okay.
It's probably my sophomore year. And I was just like, you're in a bad mood. Screw you, go eat something. Like I shrugged it off. But you have to have it, like, you really have to look at yourself in the mirror. Like to answer your question, look at yourself in the mirror. You know when you're not putting the effort in. You know when you're not doing what you're supposed to do. It's right now, there's so much structure to everything. And if you don't follow that structure, think about it. You're playing a college sport. There's a million different coaches giving you a million different things that you need to do. You can half-ass all of them, or you can max out all of them. You have a choice. What choice are you making? That's the answer to that question. What choice are you making?
Max
Max
out.
out.
Ed
Milet,
Yeah,
my
there
buddy
you
Ed.
go. There you go. We're going to probably drop a lot of names today,
Oh, hell yeah.
which is good. So you got a Rutgers wrestler sitting in front of you. Well, let me back it up. How about you got a high school wrestler sitting in front of you? What advice can you give him or her today? Because now you got wrestling, teams for women. What advice can you give them about, hey, listen, the transition from high school where you might be the man, you're good, you might have a 29-1 record, and you're going into it's Big Ten wrestling. What advice can you give them to be mentally prepared for that transition?
The advice that I have to give is twofold. Number one, it's going to be harder than you think. It'll be harder than you think. And set your expectations so that you don't think you're going to go in and it's going to be easy, because it's not. It's going to be harder than you think. The other piece of advice I have is don't focus on the outcome, focus on the process. Just worry about what you have to do every day to prepare yourself, to put in the effort, and then the results will take care of themselves. And that's with anything in life, whether it's work, a relationship, or it's sports. If you're so focused on what might happen, what could happen, the what ifs, and you're looking at the outcome and worried about the outcome, it's going to be a distraction from the process.
Yeah. I know in your book, you talk about, seeking progress, not perfection.
Yeah.
That's a, you have so many great things in your book, and that jumped out to me because I think there's so many people that get lost in being perfect. and they want perfection like yesterday.
Yeah.
But they forget about, what progress is like every day. So talk about that a little bit, a little excerpt from your book, which again,
Yeah.
we could spend 10 hours talking about your book is great.
Thank
Um,
you, man.
talk about that. What does that mean? Seeking progress, not perfection.
Yeah. Well, I think what happens is I think a lot of people get stuck on thinking that everything has to be done a certain way, or it has to fit into some type of mold, or timing has to be right. Well, I'll start when this happens. And you set this unrealistic expectation of what, you know, where you need to be and what has to be in place before you start.
Yeah.
And that's you know that's probably the whole reason why people procrastinate, is because they're so afraid that they're not where they're supposed to be that they never actually get started with anything, so they just keep pushing things down the road. So if you focus on progress, if you focus on process and just say, I'm just going to start here and do the best I can. I'll give you an example. If you want, let's just say you want to start running, want to start exercising. You're like, you know what? I need to run. I want to start running. Well, if you think that you're going to run 5 miles or 10 miles on your very first run, you're
Not
never going to
happening.
do it. You're
Not
not going to do
happening.
it.
Yeah.
But if you said, I'm going to lace up I'm going to stretch, I'm going to lace up my sneakers, and I'm just going to run, and I'm just going to go. And don't focus on the perfect run, just focus on a run and make progress. So the first day, maybe you run a half a mile. The next day, maybe you run 3/4 of a mile. The next day, you run a mile. That's progress. And the other thing I talk about in my book, which is really important to understand, is that there's neuroscience research that shows that your brain releases dopamine
Dopamine.
when it knows it's on track and making progress towards a goal, more so than when you actually hit the goal. So you're actually getting the happiness hormone of dopamine when you're in a task making progress towards something, more so than when you actually hit your goal.
And if you do a little bit each day, you get little hits every
Little
day of
hits.
that dopamine, which is great. So I know you talk about passion, right? And keeping the passion and losing passion. I would imagine during your 4 years at Rutgers wrestling, that there were some times where you maybe lost that passion for wrestling
Mm-hmm.
because you're having fun, partying, whatever, you know. Talk about, how can the athletes today, if you were going to chat with them today about, hey, you're going to have some ups and downs, some peaks and valleys in your sport and in your school. How do you if you lose the passion, how do you get it back?
Yeah.
Or if you got it, how do you keep it?
Yeah. That's such a good question, because I think most athletes will experience that because college sports is so difficult at every level, especially the D1 level.
Yeah.
And the way you get your passion back is you start to think about the end. It's it's not, it's going to end. So if you're an athlete right now, you're a college athlete and you're listening to this, think to yourself, how many games do you have left? How many wins are you going to experience? How many bus rides? How many team dinners? How many team parties are you going to experience? Um, it's not infinite. It's going to end. And when it ends, it's over and you can't go back and do it again. So that's the one thing I really took for granted, is I just never gave myself the awareness that you have one shot at this. And
Yeah.
if you don't make the most of it, it's going to be gone. And you're going to look back and be like, wow, I could have done so much more with that.
Hmm. Well, you mentioned the bus rides, the team dinners, the camaraderie,
Uh,
and, and this is where what when you talk to traditional students, right? They look at you, they look at me, former athletes, current athletes. They get everything handed to them. They whatever, right? They're all entitled, whatever, and privileged, whatever. you know, but they don't realize what you go through on a
Mm.
daily basis, especially like you wrestlers, how you function every day, starving every day. I don't get it. I don't know. You know, and I remember I wrestled in eighth grade for 1 year, and that was it. You know, I'm like, I'm just losing weight stuff, forget it. You know, but it's talk about, you know, how do they how do you explain the camaraderie of an being on a college team?
To me, it's the greatest part of the whole thing. And I'll tell you, I think the one reason that I stuck it out and continued to wrestle, even when my heart wasn't in it and I wasn't taking it seriously, is because I just loved my teammates.
Mm,
And the one thing that I will not regret is the memories that I experienced with my
right.
teammates, the ability to, and you know, if you ask any athlete, I'm sure you'll agree with this. I probably, me personally, I don't really remember all the wins and losses per se, but I remember of the camaraderie. I remember the bus trips. I remember the plane rides. I remember the hotel rooms. I remember,
The
you
locker
know,
room.
going out after the
Yeah.
locker room stuff, the jokes, the freaking
Yeah.
grab assing and
Yeah.
bullshit. And that's to me was the very best part of the whole experience.
Yeah. You know, and when you talk about that, Tom, you, I try to think back in my college days, even high school. Outs, you know, winning. I remember a little bit of the winning, and I remember a little bit of the losing, but I remember a lot of the fun.
Oh yeah.
You know what I mean? And it's you just can't put a finger on that. You can't explain it. You know?
Well, those are bonds. It's a
Yeah.
bond. It's almost like, you know, like the military has like, you know, these guys, they go through battle together, or they go through training
Yeah.
together. They create this really, really tight bond that's lifelong. It's the same thing with athletes is you wind up spending so much time sweating and grinding and, you know, being in that misery together
Yeah.
and experience the highs and the lows and the wins and the losses, that that's just a special bond.
Yeah. It's that connection. You know, you can't buy it. They don't. It's not for sale anywhere. You know,
No.
which is great. You know, so thinking about success again, we're going to keep talking about the athletes and you know getting out of school and gunning transition into their careers. What do you think the one thing that people can do, you know, that can help bring them closer to success? I don't care if it's on in the wrestling mat, if it's in the classroom, if it's in the corporate world when they're done. What do you think is the one thing they can do to bring them closer to being more successful than they are now?
You know, that's such an amazing question. And in anything in life, you have to prioritize. You have to prioritize. You have to be crystal clear on your goals, on what you want, and then it's up to you to make the right choices on how you're going to spend your time and where you're going to spend your focus. So whether it's wrestling or you're playing softball, baseball, basketball, you're any sport, any job, it's your responsibility to prioritize your time and your mindset and your effort, because we have choices every day. Every day we have a choice. We can either put in the work and prioritize, have our goals in mind, and work towards those goals. Like we talked about before, the progress towards something. If
Yeah,
you don't prioritize that progress, you're never going to get there.
yeah. Well, talk about, you know, prioritizing. Well, you know, athletes, they're young. They're, I don't want to say they're immature. They're young men, but they're immature, right? You know,
Oh
in
yeah.
the big scheme of things in life, let's just say, like if compared to us, they have no idea what's in front of them, or you know what I
Mhm.
mean. They know what's behind them, they know what's in front of them. But how can you know they prioritize better? You know, how could they be more effective with it?
Yeah. And I could tell you that whether we're talking about athletics or we're talking about work or we're talking about even like your relationships, you have to, like, it comes down to time allocation. Where are you spending your time? And one of the things that I train people on is you need to do an audit on how you're spending your time and what you're spending your time on. If you're super organized and you have a daily schedule, And in that schedule, so let's say it's an app in your phone or it's a calendar on your computer. If you're blocking out chunks of time and you're filling your calendar with your priorities, then you're working towards what's most important, because you're filling your calendar with just the things that are going to move the needle, just the things that are going to get you to your goals. But if you don't have a calendar, you don't organize your time, and you're just kind of reacting to the next shiny thing that pops up or the next ding on your computer, the day's going to go and you're going to be like, what did I get done?
Right.
So show me Ed Milet. Talk about Ed. He says all the time, show me your calendar. I'll show you your life.
Yeah. You know, and I to that point of show me your calendar, I've learned over the years, show me a full calendar,
Mm-hmm.
I'll show you a successful person. Show
Mm-hmm.
me an empty
Mm-hmm.
calendar or a vague calendar, like this guy's going who knows where.
Right.
You know, makes a lot of sense. So think about challenges. Like, what are some of
Mm-hmm.
the challenges or pitfalls that people should look out for when it comes to, prioritizing what's going on?
Inconsistency. Anyone, anyone can put in a good day. Anyone can do the work occasionally, but winners do it every day, not just occasionally. So an inconsistent effort's going to lead to inconsistent success. If you think of it this way, if you want to be average, then just do average things.
It's easy to be average, right?
If you want to be successful, you do successful things. And it always comes down to being consistent, putting in the daily effort all the time, not just sometimes. If you put in an occasional effort, you're going to get occasional success.
Well, in your book, you talk about, you should have a series of singles and doubles,
That's it.
right?
Everybody's trying to hit the 5-run home run.
Yeah. Yeah. When I read that, I'm like, 5-run home run. I don't know if I heard that one before, but it makes sense. It's like it doesn't exist.
It doesn't
It
exist.
doesn't exist. So let's talk about your book.
Yeah.
What was the motivation behind it? What was the inspiration behind it? How long did it take? Like, tell us about it.
Yeah. So the real motivation and the inspiration behind it was that I get requests every week. People call me up. So Jeff Durr calls me up and says, hey, Tom, you got a couple of minutes, I need to talk to you. Yeah, Jeff, what's going on? My daughter, she's on the job market. She's looking for a job and she doesn't know the first thing. Can you talk to her? Can you spend a half hour with her? Sure, Jeff, no problem. I'll talk to your daughter. Now, I spend 30 minutes with your daughter and I tell her as much as I can in 30 minutes. It's really not enough because there's so much nuance and there's so much that goes into a successful job search that I thought that what if I took every piece of advice that I have and I broke it down into a series of steps. There's the first thing you need to do. There's the second thing you need to do, and put it all in a book so that it's basically a series of coaching sessions, not just one coaching session. It's a series of coaching sessions. Each chapter is like its own coaching session.
Yeah.
So by the time you get finished with the book, you will have a complete step-by-step guide, a process, a system on how to find success in the job search. That was the motivation.
It's funny, you used a little bit of a close analogy there, but that I introduced you to my daughter's fiance.
Yeah.
And you had
Yeah.
a nice little chat with him because when I was talking to him, it's because he's looking for a next step, next career, or whatever. And like, what do you do? And then he told me the type of field that he's in, because I wasn't really sure. And he broke it down. Then I'm like, you got to talk to Tom, and then you guys connected. And then I talked to him after. He says, man, what great advice I got from Tom. He downloaded your book. He goes, I'm reading that book. I'm step by step because I'm going to follow every single thing he said to do.
Yeah.
And so it's so true. There's so many people must be knocking on your door saying, Tom, what do I do? How do I do this?
Yeah.
I need to get a job. Give me this. They're probably saying, give me the secret. What's the secret to finding a job? And there's no real secret. There's steps to follow.
Exactly. Exactly. And there is, and I say that in the book, there's no quick fix. There's no secret sauce.
Yeah.
It is a process.
Yeah.
And you have to know, you have to be willing to put in the effort.
Yeah.
And, not to get into all of the details, but it works. I could tell you that it works. And it's funny. So my niece, Isabel, so my brother, Joey, so my brother, Joe.
Yeah.
And for those of you guys listening, I have a twin brother. And, Jeff knows my brother. He has 3 kids. His oldest, Isabel, graduated from Penn State with a degree in public relations. And she was having the toughest time finding a job. So she called me up. She's like, Uncle Tommy, I need your help. And I literally just got done writing the book. And I said, Izzy, listen, read my book. I'll sit down with you, but you have to read the book. I swear to you, I'm not kidding. She got no interviews. Her resume was a disaster.
Oh,
This is a few weeks ago. She just got an offer yesterday, accepted an offer, and she's starting on August 1st.
that's beautiful.
It happened in weeks.
Wow.
It works, man. It works.
Yeah. Well, you know what? You mentioned your brother. You mentioned his kids. I have a note here. I want to make sure I ask you about your kids.
Yeah.
Because your kids have ridiculous stories. And I mean ridiculous in a positive way.
Yeah.
And can you just talk about them for a second? I want everyone to hear it. It's not just Tom, the author. It's not just Tom, the successful entrepreneur, the successful businessman. It's Tom, the father. It's Tom, the family guy. Talk about that a little bit.
Yeah. And that's my most prized possession and what I'm most proud of. So I have 2 kids. My son Dean is 26. My daughter Ava is 24. So Dean went to Caldwell High School, wrestled Caldwell High School, broke a bunch of records and had a tremendous high school wrestling career. Unfortunately, he had a bad shoulder injury, which really affected his performance and his success, but it didn't take him out. And he was recruited by all these schools. And long story short, he decided to accept and pursue the Naval Academy. So my son went to United States Naval Academy. He wrestled there all 4 years with 3 labrum surgeries and kind of against all odds, and finished on a real high note. So he started his senior year. He had a really great year. He was like 1 match away from going to the NCAA tournament. He's now a Marine Corps officer stationed in Camp Pendleton. So he's a financial management officer. He's responsible for a $65 million budget for the first Marine combat unit in San Diego. He was in Japan for a year, so he has some international experience. And I couldn't be more proud of the choice that he didn't have to do that. He could have just gone to college and, come and work for me and, take over the family business. But he wanted to do something. Yeah, I asked him, I said, why all the schools you could have gone to? I said, why did you choose that route? And he said, I want to do something that very few people can say that they've done. And he wanted to serve.
That's big.
And that was his choice. And then my daughter was a competitive gymnast. She was very good, was homeschooled at a young age, meaning we would drop her off. Her mother would drop her off. So my wife would take her to this gym, and they would spend half the day doing gymnastics and half the day, being homeschooled, being taught by teachers. She was offered a full athletic scholarship for gymnastics, Ohio State University, when she was a freshman in high school. So she didn't even finish her freshman year. She had a full ride.
Wow.
And she actually eventually turned it down to go to the University of Pennsylvania. Super smart kid, wanted to go Ivy League, and had a same thing, bunch of injuries, competed, got through it. COVID hit, and that kind of ended her career.
Right.
But now she works at an investment bank in New York City, lives in Brooklyn, and she's killing it. She's killing it. Yeah. So I'm really proud of my kids.
We got to get them both on the show here.
Oh yeah. They would love to, man. They would love to.
They have awesome stories, man. Got to get that going. That'd be great. Well, I'm going to ask you some questions around the book.
Yeah.
Okay. We hit a couple of them. The first one is, you talk in your book about developing the right career habits. that, and habits is everything, and no matter what you're doing. But talk about that, developing the right habits. Would it be looking for a career? Would it be in athletics? Would it just be in life? Talk about that.
Yeah. Well, one of the things I really try to get across to people in the book is that the job search is one piece of building a career. Every once in a while, you might be on a job hunt and you have to find a new job. But that's one piece of the equation in your career. The habits I'm talking about is what can you do on a daily basis to position yourself in your career so that your next job actually comes to you? So the answer to that, first and foremost, is networking and relationship building. Every single day we interact with other people. How do those interactions go? How are you following up? How are you keeping track of those relationships? Are you connecting with those people on LinkedIn? Are you engaging with them on social media, on LinkedIn? Are you liking, commenting, sharing their posts? How active are you in your network? And what relationships are you building? How many followers do you have on LinkedIn? Do you even work at it at all? Because here's the thing, every single day, you have an opportunity to make a deposit. It's almost like a bank account. If you make small deposits in the bank account every day, by the end of the week, your account's going to grow. By the end of the month, it's going to be even better. And then by the end of the year, now what happens 5 years down the road? Instead of having 50 LinkedIn connections, you have 5,000 or 20,000. But if you don't force yourself to develop the habits each day to make those connections and build those relationships, you're going to wind up with 50 connections.
And those 50 connections is going to get you just so far.
It's just going to get you so far.
Right. So it's funny, you're leading right into the next question, as far as, committing to that personal development. In your book, you talk about reading, you talk about, listening to things, you talk about, just getting yourself better every day. And I don't think people understand how the importance of working on yourself, not just your job and what you're doing at work, which is still important, but the idea of having the right mindset, working on yourself personally to, getting a little bit better every day. Talk about, the power behind that.
It's probably, in my opinion, it's probably the greatest separator between the ultra successful and the either average or mildly successful, is that the people that spend time on personal growth and development are going to outpace everyone else, except for the other people that are also personal growth junkies. Well, and think about it this way. This is going to sound crazy, but you don't know what you don't know.
Yeah.
You don't know what you don't know
until you know it.
Until you know it. And then all of a sudden, like, think about it, because I know you're just like me. Like, I listen to podcasts every day. I'm listening to books every day. Or, I'm big on audiobooks.
Yeah.
And when you're listening to this stuff or when you're reading stuff, it's like you get these, like, I'm constantly making notes in my phone.
Yeah.
I'm at the gym and I'm listening to podcasts and I'm like, I stop and I make notes. Oh my God.
I do the same exact thing.
I'm like, I got to share this with my team. I got to talk to my kids about this. Like, that's what I'm talking about. That's enlightenment.
Yeah.
That's motivation. That's inspiration. And if you don't feed yourself with that, you're doing yourself a disservice.
It's funny you say that. I'll be sitting there in the gym and I got all kinds of things going, podcasts going. I got YouTube things going, and all this stuff feeding my brain. And I get to certain things, and I get this, like, internal, like, I don't want to call it rage, but I'm like, what the heck? Like, why aren't I doing that? Like, I can't believe I'm not doing that. Or I like you said, I got to tell the guys in my office, but I got to tell it freaks me out. Then you start typing it into your phone so you don't forget.
You don't forget.
Yeah. I'm the same way, so it all comes down to mindset, and in your book, you talk about mindset is the key to success. Shed some light on that.
Well, one of the things that I talk about in the book as it relates to mindset, and when you're in a job search or any career, you're going to experience setbacks. You're going to experience rejection. And the first chapter in my book is called The 10 Mindset Principles for a Successful Job Search. And it's paramount because if your mind's not right, it's going to limit your success. If you can get your mind right and you can follow the right principles, um, it's going to get you through those challenges. We're going to face rejection, especially in your job search. You're not just, the days of just going out and saying, okay, I want to look for a job. So I'm going to go to, Google or Indeed or whatever, and I'm going to LinkedIn, and I'm just going to apply to 5 jobs, and I'm going to get a bunch of interviews, and I'm going to get hired. That doesn't happen. That's just not the way it works. You might have to apply to 300 jobs. You might have to do all these networking calls and informational interviews and all this other stuff. So the book is filled with a strategy, but also tactics. But the key behind being able to handle the highs and the lows is the mindset. And it's like that with anything.
The long way is the shortcut.
Mm-hmm.
That was so, I read that. I'm like, holy crap. This is just so cool stuff. Talk about that the long way is the shortcut.
That's an Alex Hormozy quote. And what he had said was, everybody's looking for the shortcut, but the long way is the only way because the shortcut doesn't get you there.
Right.
The long way is the only way because the shortcut doesn't get you there. So if you try to find the shortcut, it's not going to get you there anyway.
Yeah.
So for those of you who don't know who Alex Hormozy is, he's a very successful entrepreneur, and he's all over social media. It's Hormozi. He owns a company called acquisition.com. So he goes around and, buys up all these other companies. But I had to put that in there. There's no shortcuts, man. Take the long way. Yep. Shortcut won't get you there.
And the other thing, again, I can sit here and quote your book all day long. We live, I'm not saying you do, and I can tell by your stories around your kids and my kids too, is that, but we're in the world of entitlement. Right. I mean, there's so many people that expect, I deserve this. I'm owed this. This, I should get this. Talk about you talk about, hey, we're not entitled to anything. Talk about that for a second, because like you said in your book, people think I should get that job just because my experience. Talk about the whole thought around entitlement.
I had to put that in my book, because I think one of the biggest epidemics or pandemics or whatever demic you want to, categorize it as, that's happening in this country right now is that there's this, I see this sense of entitlement. People think that they are deserving of something just for showing up. And I don't know if they were like, Jeff, you and I were not born and bred in a time where there were no participation trophies when we were growing up.
Yeah.
If we took 3rd place or 4th place, which we didn't, by the way, but somebody did,
yeah.
You don't get anything.
Right.
We got our ass kicked sometimes. We got kicked in the dirt, and we were put up against bigger people, and that's what made us better. Well, now we're in a society of instant gratification. If you have a question and you need an answer to something, you just go to Google and instantaneously.
Right.
I'm home right now, so if I wanted a certain type of food, I can go to DoorDash and it'll come to me. Like, right. Seriously, we couldn't be any more spoiled as a society. But the thing is, life, most other areas of life, especially your career, it doesn't work that way. It's a competition.
Yeah.
You're competing against somebody else. You're not entitled to anything. The person that's going to win is the person that puts in the work and the person that earns the win. And that's it.
Yeah.
I don't make the rules. That's just how it is.
That's life.
That's life, man.
And then you go right into the next thing and say, do the work. Success is earned. And most of these, from what I find today, is a lot of people, and I hate saying the younger generation because I'm not going to say you, but I'm getting old. You know what I mean? The years are clicking by, you know, and I have a lot more behind me than I do in front of me now. You know what I mean? But, you know, some people, they just don't want to do the work,
Yeah.
you know,
Yeah.
and success is earned. So talk about, you know, what made you put that in the book?
Because if, especially with your career and with your job search, I, if you don't put in the effort required to find success, then you're not going to get it. So the main motivator for me to put that in my book is I want to be very clear that I'm giving you the answers to the test. I'm giving you the system. I'm giving you the strategy and I'm giving you the tactics. The way you fail is by not doing the work. I warned you. It's in there.
Yeah.
So if you, because you know, it's funny, I have a coaching program and I charge a lot of money for my coaching program. And people, it's an online course. And some people have a lot of success with it and other people don't. And the people that don't have success, I can go into the course and I could see how far along each person is. It shows me, I could see how many modules they went through and what their progress is. There are people that spend like $2,000 on this course and they never even got past module 1. And then the people that are on module 12 and got through all the lessons and the exercises and they show up to all the monthly coaching calls and you know group meetings and everything else, they're killing it. It's a perfect example. But if you spent the money or if you bought my book and you're not going to put the effort in, you're not going to be successful and it's not going to be my fault.
You're literally giving them the secret,
That's it.
right?
That's it.
And they just don't want to follow it because they don't want to do the work because they feel they're entitled to it because of their past, you know, or what everybody tells them, you know. So the other thing you said in your book, which I thought this was sick, you'll always lose out to the person who's willing to put in the effort.
Yeah.
You know, and you know, you talk about there's some really super, like if we go back to wrestling, you mentioned before, there's the guys that are really serious, the guys that are somewhat serious, the guys that really can give a crap, right? And you can eyeball those people. But, you know, talk about, you know, that effort, you know, and the difference between talent and effort.
Well, and there's always going to be the anomaly that maybe there are certain people that are so talented that they may be able to get away with doing a little less. That's not the norm.
Right.
It's just not. And don't make the mistake to think that you're that talented. Don't try to convince yourself that you're one of those people because there's always someone out there that's going to work harder than you. You're going to get outworked at some point. The thing about this concept is that you have a choice. Every day you have a choice when you wake up. What time are you going to get up? How much effort are you going to put in? How many hours are you going to put in? How organized you're going to be? How are you going to prioritize your day? How long are you going to work till? And how many breaks are you going to take? What kind of distractions are you going to let affect you during the day? There's a million different things. I don't have to go into all of them. But hard work is not just about, okay, well, you know, I'm the first one in the office and the last one to leave. That's great. That's great. But like, what exactly is it that you're getting done?
Yeah.
How are you going about your day? Are you outworking everybody or are you just going through the motions? So there's really another audit that has to happen as we talk about this concept, because I think some people, you know, we all have the same 24 hours every day. Why are certain people more successful than others? Comes down to this whole concept.
Yeah. And then it comes in, like you said, grit. Success requires grit. You know, and I don't think, Tom, I think our generation understands the word grit. I don't think, you know, and I know the people listening to this show, they might say, man, he's really ripping on us. But I don't know if the younger generations truly understand what the definition of grit really is, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. And, you know, and in all fairness, anyone that's listening that might be in the younger generation, like I'm there are people I come across that I'm really impressed because they get it. They have this old school mentality and they're just outworking everybody and they're killing it. And that's who you want to associate with. Because to your point, Jeff, there's just a lot of people out there that don't understand what true grit is, and resilience and hard work and effort and grind and just being able to like do it consistently day in and day out. That's the key.
That's huge. So you mentioned, we talked about the book. You mentioned your company. You mentioned your coaching program. There's people listening right now and say, how do I get a hold of this guy? You know, if I want to look into him and as far as his recruiting firm, how do I get a hold of him? If I want to, you know, get into his coaching program, how do I get a hold of him? I want to read his book. What's the title of it? Even though I flashed it up there, how can they get a hold of you to take advantage of all the great things you're doing?
Yeah, LinkedIn. So you definitely follow me on LinkedIn, and anyone listening to this, I want to keep coming back to the importance of LinkedIn and social media. I don't mean social media from the standpoint of necessarily like, you know, Facebook and Instagram. I'm talking more LinkedIn and YouTube, which I think are two of the most important platforms, not just now, but in the future, because I think that's where everything's going. Well, right now, for your career, you need to be active on LinkedIn. You have to be on there. It's where business people migrate. It's where recruiters go to find talent for their positions. It's where salespeople go to get prospects. It's a place to be seen. It's a place to see. You could do a lot of research on LinkedIn. I'm on there. I post every single day. I post content for job seekers. I post content that's motivational, inspirational. So with Tom, last name's Caravela, Caravela. Look me up on LinkedIn, send me a message. Now, here's a tip, pro tip. When you connect with someone, this is in my book, when you connect with somebody on LinkedIn, don't just click the connect button. Send them a message. Make that message brief. Hi, Tom. I heard you on Jeff's podcast. That's all you have to say, and I'll accept your request. I heard you on Tom's podcast. Would love to add you to my network. Done. Automatically in. I get messages from people that are a mile long. I don't read them.
Right.
I get connection requests from people that I don't know, and there's no message. I don't answer it. Very, very simple. Short, mention something that you have in common with that person, and I'm sure that they'll accept. I also have a YouTube channel. It's called Job Search Mastery. So you can find me on YouTube. But LinkedIn's really the best place to connect. You could send me a connection request or a direct message on LinkedIn. Connect first and then send me a message. And I'm happy to provide more information. My book is called Job Search Mastery: How to Win Your Dream Job. It's available on Amazon. It's available in Barnes and Noble. You can download it digitally. You could buy the hardcover, paperback. Went to #1 in 5 different categories, so it's up there. You'll find it.
And you were on the jumbotron out in Times Square.
Yeah, that was just for a day, though.
Hey, all it takes is one day.
Yeah. Well, I got the photo. I got the photo up. I got a video.
Yeah, and that'll live forever.
Oh yeah.
Well,
exciting.
Tom, I could sit here and ask you a million questions all day long, but is there anything else that I haven't asked you yet that you think the listeners should know before we end the show tonight?
Yeah, the one thing I talk about this in the book a little bit, I talk about it on my podcast, and it's just a common theme, is that be good to yourself. Try to neutralize the negative voice. And we all can be hard on ourselves, and we all the negative chatter, that negative dialogue that comes into our minds, that imposter syndrome, the times where we're telling ourselves maybe we're not good enough or maybe we don't have what it takes. Those are just lies. They're just lies. You were born with the same ability as people that are doing amazing things. So why can't you do it? Yeah. So don't convince yourself that you're less than anyone. It's a negativity bias that we're all born with. And the way to control it is just be mindful of your thoughts and realize that if you start going negative, just think of something that you're grateful for, something that you have to look forward to, something that you're working towards. Just remember, progress is going to release dopamine. So think about things that you want to happen. Think about things you're working towards. Think about your dreams, your goals. Dreaming is free. Your imagination is free. Don't let anybody take it away from you, and don't spend time in your imagination with negative thoughts if you can control.
Awesome advice. Awesome advice. Well, Tom, listen, man, I appreciate you being on this show. And you know what? We're originally we were talking, hey, this might only go a half hour. We're going an hour and something now, and I could go another hour with you. You know,
Oh yeah, man.
and I truly enjoy this. But you know, we can see why you're so successful in what you're doing. And you're not just successful for yourself or for your family. We can see that your success is touching thousands and thousands, hundreds of thousands of people with your podcast and stuff too. It's just and worldwide stuff. It's incredible. You know, so
Thanks,
so keep on touching people, keep on impacting people, keep on doing the great work. And I want to, whenever you're doing your next book, we're going to get you back on here for that one too.
Let's do it, man.
All right.
I'm already getting ready to start working on it.
Let's
So
go. Let's do it.
appreciate it, brother. Thank
Thanks
you,
for being
Jeff.
on the show. You got it, man.
You're the
See you
man.
soon.
Yeah, man. Appreciate it.